Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our interview series, IDMonSite. My name is Chiara Maria Murgia, and I'm a trainee at the Institute for the Danube region in Central Europe here in Vienna. Today, the IDMonSite brings us to Serbia, and more precisely in Belgrade, from where our today's guest is connected. So let me first welcome Stanislav Vučković. Hello, Stanislav.
Hello, Chiara. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to having you here. So today we are going to discuss about a couple of hot topics, I would say. But first of all, let me remind the people who are listening to us that they can put their questions on the chat of our YouTube live stream. They will be transmitted to me, so we can enrich further our discussion. So in the past 3 months, a series of protests calling for environmental justice took place in Belgrade, and not only in Belgrade, but in many other cities and towns in the country, in response to the new referendum and expropriation laws and Rio Tinto's project for a lithium mine in the Jadar Valley. In the last week, 10 of thousands of people have gathered at more than 60 locations in cities and towns all over Serbia, rendering the current demonstrations the biggest and the most coordinated ones in more than 20 years in the country. In today's episode, together with Stanislav Vučković, would like to discuss the current developments, and in particular, we would like to tackle the issues at stake from an activist perspective. Therefore, I'm very excited to talk to you, Stanislav, and for having you here. Well, you are an activist from EcoStraža, one of the associations that are behind, together with other groups and organizations behind the protests. Your organization is a very spontaneous and informal group, which is has the main goal to protect the environment with a special emphasis on fight against air pollution in Serbia, but also in the surroundings. So can you please, first of all, just give a little background of your organization, EcoStraža, what you do, and how the organization was founded and was born, and what actions are you undertaking in order to achieve your goals?
Hi, Chiara. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak and to perform this interview. So, regarding EcoStraža, so it's basically an informal association of citizens of Serbia, which was founded by Bojan Simišić approximately 2 years ago, and it was triggered when he for the first time started to become aware of the actual amount of air pollution in Belgrade. So he decided to take some action and to raise awareness of people from Serbia about the situation with air pollution. And he started with it's basically a Facebook page. At the beginning, it was a Facebook page. Now we are communicating over different social medias, including Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. So, but it started, as I said, as a Facebook page, and basically it was informing people on the level of pollution from day to day, because government and government institutions were quiet about it. So it was, let's say, a taboo theme. Nobody was speaking about it, and EcoStraža took upon itself to inform the citizens. So the Facebook page gained a lot of attention. People became worried, and more and more people joined and followed and liked the page, and that's how, let's say, a reasonably big community of followers and people that are contributing to the content of EcoStraža came to be at least 60,000 now, and it's growing. So the main emphasis of EcoStraža is, as you said, is air pollution, but it aims to raise awareness and to force the government institutions to resolve all other environmental problems. The methods.
Thank you, Stanislav.
Okay.
So, as you said, institutions and government were pretty quiet, but in these very days, I mean, people are not. And citizens are taken to the streets of the cities, and there are massive protests. So I would just like to go straight to the point of this protest and asking you, what are actually the reasons behind the demonstrations, and what are you demanding to the government?
Yeah. So as usual, there are reasons and there are triggers. So the reason is the utter and complete neglect of all environmental issues in Serbia, with special emphasis on this lithium mine in Jadar Valley that is Rio Tinto planning to open. But the actual trigger were the two laws. One of them was actually completely enacted, and the other was voted by the assembly and left to president to sign. And those two laws are the laws of expropriation and the referendum laws, and they are perceived by the people of Serbia as the laws which are to speed up, hasten, and facilitate the opening of the mine. Why? First of all, referendum law. So the law stipulates that the census, the smallest amount of people that are needed for referendum to be considered valid is less than 50% of voting citizens. That's one. And the second one is expropriation, which really facilitates and hastens the complete procedure for expropriation of the property for the projects that are declared by the government as a projects of national interests. And that is very how to say, discutable term if something is of national interest, and it's solely on government to decide whether something is national interest or not. So those two laws are perceived as such, and that triggered, let's say, I could easily say, a rage throughout the Serbia. And that rage was channeled by a couple of organizations, Kreni Promeni, one of them, then so-called ecological uprising, and the people respond to their call and went out on streets.
Okay, great. And are you communicating with the other organizations? I mean, there is coordination between the associations involved in the organization of the protest?
Well, Ecostraža is actively supporting those protests. We are on them. We are doing some live streams on Facebook, Instagram, and so on. But we are not among the organizers. We're not among the organizers. We are just in supporters.
Okay, which is also important. I mean,
yes.
So I would actually like to ask you again, what else do demonstrations railing about? Because I've seen different anti-government slogans, but also demands for more transparency, accountability, and the citizens, the activists are actually trying to hold the government accountable and to demand to the institutions a more commitment, first of all, for the environmental cause. So what are actually, is there a difference between the other protests occurred in June, for instance, the anti-government waves that have taken place in the past months? Or there are any connections between these movements, or it's a completely different story?
Yes, the protests that happened in June, as far as I know, are actually one of the series of the protests that started in January by Ecostraža, and then were followed in April, and then in June. And so the protests are about, those protests in June are about the actual against the opening of the mine of Rio Tinto in Jadar. But as I said, situation erupted recently with those two laws, And basically, yes, as you said, protesters are how to say, they are there is a great deal of mistrust to government. This is just the tip of an iceberg, because there is a great negligence from side of the government. There is shady deals going around. There is no transparency. Is non-existent. Virtually nobody knows what the government is discussing, and with Rio Tinto, what are the deals? There were some documents that were shown in the public, but how to say, a big part of the document was just crossed with the black ink. So people are mistrustful. They don't believe the government, and those laws just enraged people because everything became clear suddenly. What are the plans actually?
Yes, and also one of the arguments often used by the government in favor of the Jadar project by Rio Tinto is the fact that it would eventually create new jobs for Serbian citizens, and also it will improve the economic growth in Serbia. But actually, what are the implications of the Jadar project by Rio Tinto in terms of environment and also with regards to the health of Serbian citizens?
Okay, so first of all, that let's say statement that Rio Tinto is going to create this job, it's a lie. It's bluntly said, it's a lie. One of the organizations that is combating against this mine, which is led by Maria Alimpic, discovered actually recently that the number of jobs that is going to be created is approximately 312, if I remember well. So that's the number of the jobs that Rio Tinto is going to create, and because of the opening of the mine, 20,000 people will have to be relocated. So that's a lie. So
and these people are actually working in the valley.
Yes. The valley is a very agriculturally productive valley. It's pristine nature. It's beautiful valley, and it is let's say agriculturally very productive, as I said. So there will be no net gain of jobs, but rather loss of them. And that's just economic topic, economic side of the things. The other point is environmental, which is let's say the greatest worry for the people of Serbia. That region is particularly, first of all, agriculturally productive, so it means it produces food and stuff. Then it is the source, one of the greatest source of drinkable water in Serbia. And also from the other links that other documents that have been linked, Rio Tinto doesn't have a valid plan how to decontaminate the water that will eventually go into Jadar River, and Jadar is going into Drina into Sava, and all the way up to Belgrade, and down the Danube. So those waters are going to be contaminated. They will, according to the studies done by some relevant professor from Belgrade University, they will not longer be drinkable. And we can also already see that, because there were some exploration wells in Loznica, the city near Loznica, near Jadar Valley, and in other parts of Western Serbia, and those exploration links have how to say, intoxicated the, I don't know the actual terminology in English, but underground water from which the wells are getting the water for people to drink. So those waters have been already, with exploration drills, have been contaminated by arsenic. So already at the exploration level, we are having a drinkable water contamination. And what would happen if the mine opens? All hell break loose. So that complete part of Western Serbia would be devastated. And so that's the main worry. That's the main worry for protesters. And yes.
Yes, I see. And yes, also the fact that the contaminated water will be thrown in the Drina River, and then
Yes.
again, the journey will keep running from Sava and the Danube. It
Yes.
raises concerns not only in the Jadar Valley, but in the whole country. And
Yes.
if we keep going, also in the whole Balkan region, and
Yes.
from there to Europe. So I see that pollution, but in general, all the problems related to the environment have no borders. And in this sense, I'm wondering, is the environmental movement in Serbia thinking about creating synergies with other ecological movements all over the region and in Europe as well? Because what we're talking about today is a concern for Jadar, for Serbia, but for the region itself and for Europe as well.
Well, what I can say, well, we are ecological scene in Serbia currently has, let's say, very, very big issues. So we are currently, I think, at least I can speak for EcoStraž because I know some details. We are supported by many people from the region. They are following the page, but some active steps in coordination have not yet been undertaken. But I guess it is in the future. So, as you said, environmental problems doesn't know any political boundaries. So in order to efficiently solve them, I guess we will have to coordinate our activities.
And raising awareness, as you rightly said, is one of the first steps in order for the people to know what is happening and in order to react and try to hold our institutions accountable. Also talking about the international perspective, international framework, I saw that many people from Serbia living in Europe, all over Europe, the so-called diaspora are demonstrating in their own cities in favor of the movement, and which also got the sympathy of numerous celebrities and other popular persons in Europe and in Serbia.
Yes.
It seems that civil society in Serbia is again awake, and since in the past years, the past decades, we didn't see such a renewed concern by the citizens with regards to common challenges. What happened? I mean,
well, basically people in Serbia were cornered by this government into organizing themselves into a great many organizations, either former or informal, that are dealing with stuff as local as a single park that is going to be cut down or against Rio Tinto. So there are many organizations, and that's the only good side effect, in my opinion, of this government, that it forced us to actively fight and for our rights and for the environment. So that is what is going on currently in Serbia. There is many civil and non-governmental organizations that are trying to save their own environment and also the wider environment of Serbia. Yes.
We have a question. I mean, it's more a comment than a question from Alexander Stankovic.
Yes.
He says that it looks that all ecological concerns were converted to law requests to government as unique goal. What would you say?
Hi, Alexander. Well, the problem when you want to organize some protests is that you need to have clear requests and to hang on to those requests until government accepts them. So if we go and protest for 1,000 issues, then none of the issues will be addressed. So this, as I said, those two laws are enacted in order to facilitate not only the mine, but many other in the mine in the Jadar Valley, but many other mines that are in preparation. Many of them in eastern Serbia, which is sometimes neglected. So also there are a couple of projects that are announced for eastern Serbia for extraction of copper, gold, and yeah, everything that goes with it. So the ecological concerns, yeah, they were not converted to law requests, but the demands for the changes of the laws and their withdrawal is put there because many people would find those would go on the street because of that. Basically, we will have the thing that is called critical mass. And if those laws are withdrawn, then all let's say, story with Rio Tinto would be significantly slowered. It will be how to say, there will be the problem in the Jadar Valley for Rio Tinto is that people are not selling their property as fast as they would like to do that, because the recent information I have is that out of 600 hectares that are needed for the mine, only 150 were bought. So they need those extra 450 hectares, and in order to achieve that, according to their timeline, that land needs to be expropriated. And that's the reason why this law is one of the reasons, I guess, that this law is was tried to be enacted. So that's the ecological concerns are still there. We are on the watch, and if a move is taken by the government to open the mine, then I guess even bigger protests are at hand.
And talking about ecological concerns, we have another question, this time from Daniela Neubacher, as she asked, so as the lithium demand is growing, also due to the expansion of renewables, what alternatives to the Jadar project are you suggesting? Or is the current movement just not in my backyard kind of movement?
Yeah, greetings to Daniela. Well, there is even more reserves in Germany. So this NIMBY is, I guess, the recent reports that I read in the media is that the Germany is having even bigger resources of lithium than Serbia, and they are even more easily accessible. I'm not an expert, but that's what I read in media. So NIMBY is, let's say, more appropriate to say for Germany than for Serbia. So that's if one of the leaders of one of the opposition parties said that we are going to allow the lithium mine when one in Germany is opened, according to the same ecological standards. No problem, open one in Germany and then respect those ecological standards, and then we will see how to implement. We will consider to implement the same thing here in Serbia. So that's about this NIMBY stuff. And also the lithium is currently popular, but as far as I read, there are many alternatives to that. So this is the thing of the moment, which will soon be over.
But in the meanwhile, if I can intervene, like if there are no alternatives, I mean, or if there are any, which are the alternatives? I can ask you, but also how can, if not lithium, is it better to opt for gas, which is actually causing pollutions, which is the same problem you are fighting within Ecostraja?
Gas is not a big.
Or coal?
I mean, coal is another thing. Yes, coal is another thing. Well, we agree that the green transition has to be done, but it needs to be done sustainably. So by destroying the Western Serbia and by polluting the drinkable water for big part of Serbia, that is not the way to do it.
Yes, let me see if we have other questions from the audience. Otherwise, I will just ask you some couple of questions more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we don't have any questions so far, but I kindly invite the audience to continue posing questions. Regarding the protests, going back to the protests, what about the way protesters are demonstrating? So what kind of methods and approach are you using in order to get visibility and in order to be effective and to get a response from the government? And what do you see is the government, what about possible reactions from the government and already existing reactions? Are you experiencing police brutality, which is one of the which has been one of the features also in the past demonstrations in Serbia? And is it similar to the previous occurred protests in June, or is this movement more peaceful and less infiltrated also by other people affiliated to the government?
Okay, so there are, let's say, there are two approaches. There are two approaches. One is a long-term approach, which is done by Ecostraja. So we're regularly organizing protests, already 3 this year, which are the police is made aware of them, that they're going to happen. Everything is according to law, and the protests are just short assembly speeches and then one walk. That's the format of the protest of Ecostraja, and it is meant to be a kind of a pressure to government, but they are not supposed. They are demands, but we are not. We would like, but we are not expecting from this government to fulfill those requests immediately. But on the long term, the desire is that those requests are respected. But then again, there is a different kind of protest which we are witnessing now, and which are. I'm hearing an echo. Sorry. Hello. Okay.
Yes.
It's okay now. So, which are provoked by those two laws, and which had to be in form of autoway, highway blocking. That is, it is thought that that kind of protest will provoke government to swift reaction, to immediate reaction. And yes, so that's the format. So the format of the protests that are currently going on is the blocking of either highway of some intersections or some regional roads and stuff like that. And yes, there was some police brutality 2 weeks ago. But it's not the police brutality that is the problem, but it's more the brutality. The only problem, I mean, it's the bigger problem is the brutality of sometimes criminalized supporters of the ruling party. So there is a group that supports a ruling party that is willing to go as a citizen to beat the protesters, and we witnessed that in city of Shabac 2 weeks ago.
Are you talking about the so-called hooligans?
Yes, yeah, hooligans and members of criminalized gangs. which are most often also hooligans. So that's the point. So there was they came with sticks and hammers basically in Shabac, on the bridge over Sava in Shabac, and they tried to beat off the protesters. They failed, but they tried, and you can see many videos about that on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw the videos, and it seems that this time activists are not reacting to those people's actions in order to keep the manifestations, the protests peaceful as much as they can, and in order for them not to be attacked from the government as violent and
yes,
not peaceful.
Yes, this government has a manner of trying to spin the public opinion in their favor by sending hooligans, which are pretending to be part of the protesters, and they are provoking police, and then police, let's say, needs to respond, and then police goes and beat and arrests not just hooligans, but the people who were peacefully assembled there and were protesting for whatever reason. So that's the manner, and that has been seen through by the people. And now the official instruction is when, let's say, those agents provocateurs are found in the midst of the people that are protesting, that they're just isolated and left standing there. There were some attempts to provoke people even last weekend, but to a much lesser scale than the weekend before. So there were basically the brutality that we witnessed in the bridge of Shabac, I think, was one of the main reasons that we saw so many people during the last Saturday.
And talking about the government response to such demonstrations, what about the media coverage of these events?
Okay, you have either a privately owned media that are, I would not say independent, but they are against this. Their political agenda is obviously against this government. They are covering those protests, and there is a but they do not have national frequency. So you can only see them if you have a cable TV with a special provider. So they are not nationwide. Many people in Belgrade have them, but the rest of Serbia is basically doesn't look at them, doesn't watch those televisions. And then there is another part, the other part of media completely controlled by the government, and there you could see nothing. You can see only some, if there is something, then the number of protesters is minimalized. So the one of the television said there were 20 protesters on the bridge, while there was 20,000 of protesters and stuff like that. So yeah, typical media spin and cover up from the part of the media that are loyal to the government.
And what are you expecting the governments to do after? I mean, if they will take a step back when it comes to the laws on expropriation and referendum, are you going to pursue other goals?
Well,
and if yes, what is your strategy? What should we expect in the future from the movement?
Okay, so I can comment briefly on plans of Ecostraža, and then I can, let's say, talk to you say to you what I heard about the plans of other organizations. So regarding Ecostraža, we are planning to continue to raise awareness and organize peaceful protests. But the other groups, as far as I'm aware, after these demands about those two laws are obeyed, and it is announced that they will be until this Friday, I think that they are planning to come up with another demands. But let's see what will happen this weekend. On Saturday, there is going to be a big assembly on Republic Square in Belgrade, the main square, the main square for assembling people in Belgrade. So I guess the organizer will come up with some other demands for the future.
So this also answers to the previous comment on the fact that ecological concern seems to be converted to law request only. But we will see what is going to be next. Also, we have another comment from Slobodan Josic. Yeah, sorry for the mispronunciation.
Hi, Slobodan. I know the guy, so yes.
Yeah, he's saying that countries that pass through war crisis and economic crisis outside of the EU are interested as backyards.
Yeah, that's the general sentiment here in Serbia, that basically the dirty technologies are outsourced from the EU and installed here in Serbia. The intention, at least. That's unfortunately the general sense, which I'm, let's say, would like that to change.
So you think that that people have such a perception about lithium project, big also and especially because it is a foreign corporation which is planning to come to Serbia and extract in your territory, or do you think that it will change something if it was a national company and if the project was led by national investors or public investors?
Unfortunately, even Rio Tinto doesn't have a know-how how to dig out lithium. This project in Jadar Valley is their pilot project for projects that are to come in future. So even Rio Tinto doesn't have they're planning to learn while polluting and destroying the Western Serbia. So that's what also leaked from their documents. And then to consider that Serbia, which has unfortunately a smaller turnout of money than Rio Tinto does, to invest there, it's not possible. So we do not have know-how to invest there. Rio Tinto doesn't have know-how how to ecologically and safely for environment extract lithium there. And on top of that, they are infamous for their business practices. They are infamous for their business practices, and certainly, but nonetheless, not just Rio Tinto, any other company that is planning to extract lithium there is not welcome.
Okay, thank you, Stanislav. We don't have any other questions, and I would say that we're approaching the end of the interview.
Okay.
Let me thank you again.
Thank you, Chiara,
here and for exchanging your experience and your perspective with us. For us, it was very important to tackle the events occurring nowadays in Serbia from listening from an activist point of view, and also to give the visibility to such an important moment for the civil society in your country. I remind the people who are listening to us that this interview will be possible to rewatch in our YouTube channel, and you can keep following us in our following IDM on our social media channels on Facebook and Instagram, and also on our website where the interview will be also posted. So thank you, Stanislav.
Thank you, Chiara, as well.
I hope to see you soon, maybe in Belgrade. And let's see the next round of the IDMonSite interview, what will be the topic and who is going to be interviewed. So it's all for now, and have a great day, Stanislav, and bye to our audience.
Thank you, Chiara. We will be most happy to welcome you here in Serbia.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.